Okay, so welcome to the sixth chapter of Judges. I'd like to thank Tyler Manette for doing the video editing for this video. Let's just hop right into it. I presume you've read it already, but if you haven't, now's the time to read it. Feel free to pause the video at this point during the intermission, have a read, and we're going to go over a few minor portions in the book of Judges. Thanks. Okay, so welcome back. A few things that we should probably establish is a couple of the key characters in this. The Midianites. What is a Midianite? Well, there's a couple of instances of what a Midianite is in the previous portions of Scripture in the Torah. Moses' father-in-law was a Kenite, and a Kenite was actually closely associated with Midianites, and the words were actually used interchangeably. Moses fled into the land of the Midianites after, if you recall, he saw an Egyptian whipping an Israelite, and he killed the Egyptian slave driver, so he fled into the land of the Midianites. You might remember that, and this is the most recent portion of what a person who is a Midianite is Jael. And you might remember, hey, I know that name. Well, Jael was a descendant of the Midianites. She was a Kenite. Again, someone who is equal to the Midianites. And Jael was the one who you remember in chapter 4 was the person who killed Sisera, the general of the army in chapter 4. So there's a lot of different things, nuances to this that really make this a beautiful chapter. Because we're only 40 years after Jael killed Sisera, and the story of Deborah and Barak. 40 years after that, now we're all of a sudden into a new generation of Israelites. And now these Israelites, because they disobeyed God, were under the power of the Midianites. So it's interesting how the same people that saved them 40 years previously are the same people that are now oppressing them, to the point where they come every year annually, take all of their grain and their crops and fruit and vegetables and all of that, and to the point where there isn't even any animals in the area. So it's pretty interesting here. This is the setting we see, and this is the reason why we see Gideon. And the first instance of Gideon, and I love Gideon. Again, he's one of my favorite characters in the Bible. Here's Gideon. He's sitting in a wine press. Okay. Here's it was a wood cask, a whole bunch of planks of wood, kind of like a barrel except bigger, like a wooden barrel. If you remember from, I don't know, any Robin Hood movie you've seen where there's Friar Tuck, he's always got a ton of alcohol behind him in these wood barrels, kind of like that but bigger. And people would literally be inside of this and stomping out on the grapes as a tradition during harvest time of the grapes, so that they can make wine. Well, here's Gideon. The wine press is obviously empty, and here's Gideon beating the wheat so he can make flour and make bread, hiding himself from everyone. Okay, he's inside this wine press. There's a lid over top, and there's the angel of the Lord is kind of a character in this, because the angel is just sitting under a palm tree, and he probably it's like he hears a sound, right? So the angel of the Lord walks up to this wine press and opens the lid and is like, Gideon, what are you doing in that wine press? And Gideon is basically saying, and what are you doing in that wine press? You're a warrior. And Gideon's like, a warrior? One just second here. First of all, I'm not a warrior. And second of all, I'm doing this because basically and Gideon reiterates in verse 13, almost verbatim, what the Lord, the angel of the Lord in verse 8 and 9 says, in saying, look, we're being punished because we screwed up. The Midianites are forcing us into caves and everything. And here you are telling me I'm a warrior? Uh-huh. Woo! So don't even tell me I'm a warrior when I'm sitting in this stupid wine press beating down some pieces of grain just to make myself some lunch, okay? This is dumb. Why are you even coming in here and telling me this? So that's totally Gideon being Gideon. Okay, look, I Don't know why you're even telling me this. But he says even after that, well, hang on a second. Did you just call me a warrior? Maybe you didn't know, but I'm a part of the tribe of Manasseh. And in the tribe of Manasseh, my family is the lowest, and then of my family, I'm the youngest. So basically, he's saying that my family is the youngest, the least of Manasseh, meaning the lowest class, and I'm the youngest, meaning the lowest class of his family of Manasseh. And why is Manasseh important? Well, Manasseh and Ephraim were the two sons of Jacob that were adopted. Okay, they're not true blood sons of Jacob. So even though they were the oldest, they were considered to be equal to the youngest, the tribe of Benjamin. And again, I love this because the youngest tribe and the oldest tribe are considered equals, and to every single other tribe who are the direct descendants of Jacob, not being adopted at all, the Manasseh and Ephraim were considered to be a lesser race, kind of like how the Gentiles in the New Testament, once they came to be Christians, were still considered to be a lesser race than the Jews who converted to being Christians. And that we see that in a little bit of the New Testament. But anyway, so Gideon is being Gideon. Okay, he's making excuses. He's telling the angel that, you know what, I'm the least of my tribes. And my tribe is equal to the youngest tribe in Israel, the youngest tribe of Judah, and so of Jacob. So here's the funny thing, that the youngest tribe was the tribe of Benjamin. And if you recall in chapter 3, the story of Ehud, he was a left-handed man, and he was from the tribe of Benjamin. So God has a total track record of doing exactly what God does all the time. Just how Gideon makes excuses and everything, God uses him. Just how Ehud was a left-handed man of the tribe of Benjamin, God uses him. Just as Moses had a speech problem and didn't understand the slaves because he was born of privilege, God uses him. Throughout the Bible, and including Jesus himself wasn't this really, beefed up guy, because Isaiah says that there was nothing about him that set him apart, about Jesus. This is a prophecy of Christ now. Nothing about Jesus set him apart as far as good looks or political stature or anything like that. And so when we're seeing this, we see, okay, God is being God and Gideon's a moron. But anyway, let's move on. So Gideon then says, and he finally does something right. He says, okay, angel, wait right there. I'm going to go get my lunch. I'm going to bring it back, and I'm going to sacrifice it to you because I think you're, because I kind of want to ad-lib here, thinking that Gideon is saying, I think you're full of crap. So I'm going to sacrifice this thing in front of you, and if something cool happens, then I'll know you're God. So the angel's like, all right, I'll sit under this tree that I was in before I saw you clunking around in this vat like an idiot, and I'm going to wait for you to come back. So Gideon gets his lunch. He comes back with, it's not his lunch, okay? It's just like an animal and some broth. But you could pretty much just call it what's going to be his lunch. Anyway, so he puts that on this altar, and the angel's like, zap, and the everything is gone. It gets zapped up, and now all of a sudden, Gideon is like, oh my gosh, you're God, and now that I've seen your face, I'm going to die. What am I going to do? And the angel's like, just chill out, okay? Because you haven't died yet. Why am I going to kill you now, right after I said you're going to deliver Israel from the Midianites? And so Gideon's like, okay, what do you want me to do? So the angel of the Lord tells Gideon, go take down the altar of Baal and the pole of Asheroth in your own town. So Gideon does what the angel says, because again, he thinks if he doesn't, he's going to die. So Gideon is going to do the right thing in the eyes of the Lord, right? Right, but just barely. Gideon takes 10 of his servants, okay, these are guys who follow him to the death no matter what, and that's basically what they're thinking in their heads, going, everybody around here is worshiping Baal and Asheroth. What are we doing? Why are we pulling this down? Gideon, you're an idiot. I don't have a choice but to follow you, but I think we're all gonna die doing it. So Gideon goes at nighttime. Being Gideon, he goes at night, he takes his 10 servants, the guys who have to go with him, not by choice, and he takes down the idols, the false idols, false gods. Okay, so that puts it in perspective, right? Now the people come up to his dad and says, give us Gideon, because as if we don't have enough issues that without Gideon and these Midianites always coming and taking our stuff. Now Gideon is ripping the stuff that we do have. Give us to him so we can appease Baal and not have anything worse come upon us and have him killed. Gideon's dad then, this is really cool. Gideon's dad comes out and says, let Baal fight his own battle. Now does that sound familiar? Maybe just a little. Elijah said the same thing. Let Baal fight his own battle. And you'll actually can read that in Kings. Anyway, so he says let Baal fight his own battle, and we'll leave it up to him. And in doing so, he renames Gideon Jerubbaal. And the reason why he does that is so that everyone knows, as they see Gideon trotting around town, that every day that passes, Baal and Asheroth are discredited every single day, that nothing bad happens to Gideon. Good call, Dad. Good wisdom. I like that. So then, Gideon calls together some people. And this is a great opportunity for redemption, right? So Gideon is called by God to deliver Israel once again, to be a judge, right? Book of Judges. So he calls some people together. And you read a few names that may sound familiar. Asher, Ephraim, Manasseh, Naphtali. These are some of the same people and descendants of the same people. Again, we're talking a full generation later from Deborah and Barak's story. These are the same descendants who don't take part in that battle. So they get to actually finally have a bit of redemptive quality, a redemptive opportunity to make favor in the eyes of the Lord. Again, Asher, Ephraim, Manasseh, and Naphtali didn't take part in the battle that Deborah and Barak took part in. Awesome! They have a chance for redemption. So now, we have Gideon being Gideon one more time in this chapter. Gideon asks God to prove himself. Gideon had just finished getting together the 22,000 people that he was going to take to go and battle the Midianites. And Gideon needs one more thing from God to prove to him that this is true. So he takes a piece of fleece, okay, a bit of something that he shaved from a sheep, and he puts it on the threshing floor. Now the threshing floor is a piece of rock that 2 oxen and a flat press would go round and round and round and round until all of the flour, the grain that was there, the grain that was threshed, gets crushed. And it's usually typically in a place that's windy so that all the chaff can be separated and all the wheat can go through the floor and into kind of like a grid, like if you sift sand, same kind of thing. Any small particles goes through the floor and any of the chaff gets separated, separating the wheat from the chaff. That's an analogy that's used in the New Testament.